Hello, welcome to episode 21 of Three Losers in a Church. This is the continuation of our three-part recap of Retreat. First episode, we had Chris talking about simplicity, back to the basics. And now for episode 2, we have Tyler Page leading us in with...
Worship to an Empty Room. I almost forgot my own title for a second. But yeah, so I worship led in some standing at Retreat. This is my second time worship leading, like for a retreat. I've worship led a couple events and stuff, but it was different. I felt I prepared differently for this one than the last retreat I worship led, but it was, I don't know, a different crowd. So I worship led at a college retreat in November and then the youth retreat in January. So those are, of course, the two largest worship leading things I've done. And November, it was a lot of like, oh, this is the song choice. This is the scripture passage. This is what I want to happen here. This is what I want to say. This is what I want to transition. A lot of logistical things. Of course, I had a larger team. It was a larger audience. So like all those things kind of went into play there. And then the youth retreat, I was just kind of like, oh, I should make a song list. Partially, I was taking a class before. So like there was like this whole, I was busy and it was kind of like, I don't want to say
busy was an understatement.
Yeah, I was kind of stressed
out
for a while.
The night before was horrendous for you.
Oh yeah, that was rough. So we saw a movie. This is a light into Tyler Page. We saw a movie until 10 o'clock, 10:30. I then came home, was up for 2 hours. Then at midnight, I think I started at like 12:30. I started my econ final online. It was terrible. That ended at about like 2 o'clock. Then I couldn't fall asleep for a little bit because I was like, econ final. And then, because like that's a lot of like mental effort.
Oh yeah.
And then eventually I fell asleep and then woke up at 6 o'clock to go to work and then worked for a half day and then drove to retreat and then led worship. So that day was a lot. No wonder I went to sleep at like 10 o'clock.
Right.
But so that kind of played into a part of why I wasn't able to, I don't want to see this as an excuse. I slacked off and should have prepared a little better. But there was also kind of this like, oh, this is natural. Like there's a cajon and a vocalist and a guitar player. Like that's all we had. So it was super low key. It was a pretty small group. It was in a space I knew, so I didn't have to worry about setup and all those other things. So I was much more relaxed going into this opposed to last time. Partially for like, I didn't have to impress anybody. If I'm being honest, right? Like, these aren't my peers. These are like students I've worked with in the past. And I was like, okay, like if I don't do a great job, I didn't do a great job.
They've seen you at your worst.
They've seen me, right. I've played definitely worse sets in front of them in the past. For sure. But for college retreat, I was like, I need the best of the best here, right? Partially because I was like, oh, these are my peers. And these are, people who I want to think highly of me. I'm being honest here. I don't know. I mean,
I get that. Yeah. I think we mentioned in another episode, like, like if you go to church and try to impress people there, like we've all been guilty of that.
Yeah.
Even though it's not supposed to be what you're doing,
Just trying to find a wife.
Hey, I can't say, there's a motive there. I'm not gonna lie. I can't say that I am humble 100% of the time and do everything for God's glory. Because that's a lie. I can't do that. I'm a human being. But so there was a very different mindset for this retreat. That's the point I'm getting at here. For better or for worse. And we were kind of talking about retreat recap between recording these two episodes. And it was really hard to kind of come up with one idea that I wanted to take away from this whole thing. And there was a moment at retreat where there was very little audience participation, right? Which happens all the time, especially with youth worship. For like a small youth group, everyone's like, I don't want anyone to hear me sing. And like, knowing the students, like they're in kind of some rough spots. And so it's understandable. And I anticipated it. And Chris, you even made a comment to me about it saying like, don't expect that. And if it was me a couple years ago, I think it would have been a lot harder, partially because I don't think I would have played as well. But I remember there was a moment when I had begun making Hub Worship Team a long time ago. And
you were in high school.
I was in high
just to
school, yeah.
clarify,
I was maybe a junior, maybe a sophomore. And I was just like angry or hurt. Yeah, probably angry more than hurt, but it's kind of hurt. Where I was just like, I try so hard, and the students just stand there. And that's a part of it, right? Like, I put a lot of effort in. I want something in return, right? There's my, like, feedback. Was this good? Is this bad, right? But also, like, oh, this feels good because, like, I'm doing a good job, right? Like, feed my ego. And so, like, that was a part of that. But, and I even say that I've completely grown out of that because there was moments at the retreat where I was just like, like, this is so hard. Like, there's nothing, there's no connection, right? And of course, there's the whole bigger picture of like, I don't know how the students are, what the students are going through. I don't know what their worshiping style is. I don't know how they're worshiping in that setting. So there's another whole aspect to that. But there was a moment when I was playing, and I shared with a couple of leaders while we were up there. And I was just like, you know what? Like, this room feels empty. In both sense of like, oh, this room feels empty. But also like, oh wait, but this room is empty. This doesn't matter if there's anyone else in this room. Like me standing here on stage is like, I'm not worshiping the students.
Right.
Like I don't care if they interact. It's not about that. I am merely, I like tried to say avenue and like, it was just, I was a whole word jump there.
It's okay.
I have yet to come up with a good adjective. Instrument, a tool, instrument, a channel. I don't know, a pathway, right? Like I'm an avenue,
right,
of worship, right? I am leading them, but like, not really.
Right, yeah. It's like just incidental that you happen to be the one singing and playing.
I'm the guy who knows how to play guitar. Therefore, that's why I'm doing it. But yeah, I mean, as is my life. But like, there was this moment where I was like, oh, this room is empty, right? And there was kind of this moment of like, oh, but like that's the way worship should be, right? Like, I don't care how anyone else in this room is responding, right? And that's not saying like you should only worship by yourself, not in community, because that's important. But everything else was washed away, right? I was alternatively going to title this "Heart of Worship" because it's probably one of my all-time favorite worship songs.
Well, the way you were approaching it, I was like, oh, that sounds just like
yeah. And so like, there's a whole. I actually don't know if this is true. I've never done the research, but I've been told when Matt Redman wrote that song that basically his pastor was like, you're making this too much about the bells and whistles and like the externalness of worship. And so basically the first time he ever played that song, it was just him and a guitar, right? And Heart of Worship came out. It's a great song. Listen to it if you don't know it. This is my plug for Matt Redman. Maybe not my favorite worship song, but it's like top 3 probably. And we didn't play that song at the retreat, sadly, but there's a moment of like, this is what it's really about. And I wouldn't say that was probably like the highlight of the retreat, because it was only briefly that I was just like, this is much greater than I am. But it was up there, right? I think probably one of the larger takeaways was that I was able to kind of just get away and relax and do something I love. Like, I love leading worship. I love playing for worship.
Yeah.
I love organization and chord charts and song slides. Like, I love all that stuff. So, like, that was great that I was able to do that and get away. So it's kind of like this moment of, within all these things that I really enjoy, right? That there was also kind of like, oh, there's another whole level to this that I'm missing.
Yeah.
This is basically me saying that I'm really bad at doing this and want to be better and realize that it is there, but I'm not good at it. I don't know.
Yeah. Not to mention the whole idea of like the empty room.
Yeah.
Is a really good one. Because like you would still be worshiping if the room was empty, you know?
Right.
Like it's supposed to be rising up to our God, not like you said, to the students. And I think I might have mentioned this before, but I had a conversation with a student over the summer who was saying like, you know, just because I don't look super engaged in
Yeah.
worship and I'm not singing out super loud doesn't necessarily mean I'm not like experiencing it or having a moment or anything.
Mm.
And that was really cool to me because to me it didn't make much sense to not even like sing along a little or like if you're feeling really into it to like move a little or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
But some people are just like that.
Right. I think it's all three of us. Like it's the musician in all of us, right? Like,
I'm a musician.
sure, I'll count you in on that. I'm not really even one, so I just
That's
wrap
wrong.
myself in there. But like, I don't like. I can't imagine listening to a song and not tapping my foot or like tapping on something. Like it's just like that's or like strumming in the air or like something like that. Like,
Yeah.
So clearly, that's how our minds think, and that's very hard for like us to think as non-musicians because it's such a big piece of our lives.
Mhm.
You especially, right?
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Yeah. And me because I'm a lunatic. But so I think like even to me, I'm like that's such a foreign thought, right? Like if I'm really into it, like
Mhm.
maybe I won't sing, but like I'm there, I'm in the moment, right?
Mhm.
And so like it's hard to like understand that, I think.
Yeah, but it's so much easier to like put up a wall
Mm.
than to be vulnerable and show.
Yeah.
Even if you are genuinely like worshiping or experiencing something, it's hard to show it sometimes. It's easier to look like, oh, I don't care. I'm not into this.
But there's also the concept that I think something that we sometimes like overlook, but there are just moments where people don't sing because they just genuinely don't believe in those words that
Yeah.
are on
Right.
the screen.
That too. Which is a real thing. I mean, I guess that's the whole point of ministry.
Yeah.
You don't
Yeah.
need to minister to the people that already know God. Well, I mean, you do. That's not what I meant to say. But
Okay.
like,
I was like,
that was
we're
not.
gonna agree to disagree.
That
on
was not what I. That,
Kick him out, Gordon
that-
Conwell.
that came out wrong.
Fire him.
But
There's some truth in that.
yeah. But like, yeah, you don't need to like somebody who already believes God exists. You don't need to convince them that God exists because they already believe that, unless they're in a moment of like doubt or they need some reassurance, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know, is what I was trying to say.
Whether or not I entirely agree with that statement is a different story, but yes, for the sake of this conversation, I agree with you, Chris.
What does that mean?
He doesn't agree with you.
I don't agree with you, but
How do you not agree with it?
that's a tangent. We're not going to get on that. We will debate this
Fight,
later.
fight.
So last retreat, college retreat in November, I told myself, I said, Tyler, what I want you to do, wake up early, take a shower, get your hair nice, get a couple cups of coffee, right? Go upstairs and play a couple worship songs before anyone else comes to do breakfast. Right? So that was a moment where I was able to worship away from worship leader.
Mm.
I sadly did not do that this retreat. It is something that I enjoyed intentionally doing, but it would have been very hard because it was cold and snowy and I am lazy and making excuses currently. But there was this practice where, and of course I didn't do it every day. I overslept one day at that retreat. But the first 2 days, those worship sets that immediately followed felt much more genuine, opposed to the worship set when I missed. Whether that's I got a little more practice on the songs or I was really in the moment. The world may never know, but
Yeah, but if you've like prepared your heart, you know,
yeah.
then I totally get that.
And that's a whole nother meaning to this worship in an empty room, right? Most people were coming down the stairs going, what's this guy doing playing guitar? And then just kept walking. Like, that's okay. I don't care. But yeah, it was difficult in a different way than I think most worship sets that I've done in a while have been. Yeah, I don't know how really. It went smoothly. It was musically, it was fair to good, B plus. But I don't know. There was something freeing and challenging at the same time. Yeah. I guess this is kind of in a way like my own processing of what happened, but
Yeah.
it's my takeaway. Worshiping in an empty room.
Yeah.
Clearly not as articulate as yours, but
I don't know about that.
that's okay.
Well, thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Thoughts, questions, concern.
No, I mean, I think it's just something. I think even though you don't necessarily feel like you articulated it well, I think all of us know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
Like,
It's a mood.
yeah, it's a big mood.
Big mood energy. Big mood energy.
mood.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure like the same thing applies when leading. That made it seem like I was questioning. I know for a fact the same thing applies when you are A, speaking in front of a group, or B, leading a small group. Why am I adding letters to the beginning of these? Or just interacting with students or just people, right?
Right.
Yeah.
You feel like people aren't engaged. or-
Yeah. And that is very zapping, right? It takes a lot out of you. It's defeating. But like in those moments, I think it's crucial to be like, oh wait, but like there's someone else paying attention right now.
Right. And that's when you just trust that God is at work
Yeah.
doing what he's responsible for doing.
Mhm.
Your words, my words, Sam's words, everyone's words don't mean a whole lot.
Right. It's true.
She's sad because I think about them a lot.
Mm. Well, I think that's a good place to end off on. So that was episode 21. Hope you guys enjoyed. You guys can find us on the podcast app. You can find us on YouTube, but we are not on Spotify because Spotify hates Tyler.
It does. It
So
hates me.
if you are on any of those platforms, please click the subscribe button. If you're on YouTube, hit that notification bell so you get that notification when it pops up. But beyond that, thank you for listening. And yeah, have a good one.
We out.
We out.